And good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. This isn't my mic screen. This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. The days go by. Let the water. No idea. No.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That's not a. That's not why I'm here. Not for.
He's from here. He's from here. The man. I think he was originally born in Europe, but he grew up here, if I remember correctly.
Who is it?
His name is David Byrne.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, you don't pretend. He's,
oh!
He's the singer of the Talking Heads.
Oh, okay.
Legendary.
Oh, that's right. I think I do remember.
Legendary.
He went to from PG or Anne Arundel or something?
No, he's from like here.
Oh, he's from like
but like
from
not
Towson?
Okay. He was born in Scotland, but he went to Lansdowne High School.
Gotcha.
And then he went to Micah after that. So he's like from here, but not really. It's a whole thing. Like, all right, we'll do that another day.
All right, I'll invite him on.
Yeah, please. You go ahead. Go try to get David Byrne. God.
You don't think I can?
Yes, that's exactly what I think. I don't think there's a chance in hell that you could get David Byrne on this show. David Byrne popped up a couple years ago. I think he did a Broadway thing for a little while, and they had him on SNL while he was doing the Broadway thing. And then the Talking Heads had a reunion for Stop Making Sense, which is considered one of the great music films of all time. But you don't really see much of David Byrne. He's reclusive, if you will.
I mean, he's older, obviously.
Yes, he's obviously older, but it's beyond that. All right, anyway, nobody
came
here for that.
There's nothing else to talk about.
Nobody came here for that. Good morning. It's a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. That would make me Glenn. He would be Griffin. Thank you for hanging out with us last night for Project Game Day. If you missed any of it, then don't leave right now, because this will be fun. But after you finish this, get yourself some more of me. All right? It's up in the archives. You can go check it out. We do it after every game day all season long. Last night it was myself, Rita, Femi, KZ, Andrew Stecka, who is no longer hopped up on drugs.
Boring.
Straight shoot. Andrew Stecka he tried to weasel his way out of it last night. But after the Bengals went up 21-7, this is what somehow Ken and I had a group text going. I was barely involved. I was only involved when Stecka was trying to put over the helmets.
He likes the helmets.
He loves the helmets. I mean, again, the purple looks good. Mm-hmm. It's just the logo is the one. The logo itself doesn't look that good, and it's too small. It doesn't. It doesn't look like an NFL helmet. That's what he sent after they went up 21-7.
Went dim.
Oh, damn it! He sent that when they went up 21-7. What is that?
That would be Steph Curry putting the arena to sleep.
Night.
Yeah.
Night. And to which I said, I mean, they might well lose, but suggesting it's over now is nonsense.
I was thinking about texting you post-game ready to go.
Have you all not watched Lamar Jackson before? This is the most insane part about this.
Watch our defense.
PressBoxOnline.com/gameday after every game day. Go join us. We'll be with you after the Pittsburgh game next Sunday. PressBoxOnline.com/gameday. It's all brought to you by BetYard AI, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Easy Pass, and the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. Have you guys not watched Lamar Jackson before? This is the part, and I know it's weird for us because we're all going to obsess. I am an existential dread guy in general. We're all going to obsess over the defense, but it's the thing I keep trying to say. There's a reason why the guys that are the smartest guys in the room continue to remind you defense is not predictive. What is?
Offense.
Who's got Lamar Jackson?
The Ravens do.
Again, did not guarantee they were going to win because Joe Burrow could have converted. Although, in fairness, all of the hand-wringing about the 2-point conversion, there's a large part of me that wants to say, dude, I tell you what, go ahead. You can have the 2 points. Because with 30 seconds or whatever it was, I think it was
30.
40.
Or maybe
it was
it
really
was
like
39.
40.
Yeah.
40 seconds and 2 timeouts, I still think the Ravens are winning the game. The timeouts being a huge difference maker, obviously. Now, it also requires Justin Tucker having to make a kick, and I get why we feel uncomfortable about that. But genuinely,
38 seconds officially.
I still believe that even if they got the 2-point conversion, it wouldn't make a difference. In fact, I thought the time left was...
They had 2 timeouts left?
What's that?
Did the Ravens have 2 timeouts left?
They had 2 timeouts left.
Yeah.
I thought the time left was the most compelling argument for whether or not the Bengals should be going for 2. If there's 20 seconds left, absolutely they should be going for 2. But it's this weird bit that nobody likes to talk about, which is once a team is able to play all 4 downs, that's the benefit the Bengals had, right? The Bengals had to go for it on 4th and 10. And I'm still not sure that they got it. I don't know how it is that we don't demand that we have that down-the-line camera angle.
Or microchip the footballs.
That'd be nice, right? But if for whatever stupid reason we're not willing to accept that technology, we say to all these networks, you want to broadcast the games, you have to have a camera on the down and distance on the down marker every game, every spot.
Yeah, at least the primetime games.
But not even just the prime.
I mean,
they had it for a Sunday 1:00 game last week when the Ravens played the Broncos, and if they hadn't, then the Broncos would have been given a first down that they didn't earn. How do you not have that? It's insane to me that we see how beneficial it can be. And somebody would say, well, what if there's a player in front of it? It doesn't mean that it's going to be working 100% of the time. Last night it would have been. There was no player that would have been blocking the view. You would have had a down-the-line angle as to whether or not the ball actually got there when the knee hit. I don't know that it did. But for whatever beyond that, the Bengals had the advantage of 4 downs to get 10 yards. If you give the same advantage to the Ravens with 40 seconds left, starting from their 30-yard line, most likely, I'm going to take my chances with 2 timeouts that the Ravens will do it. And I do think that if I was in Cincinnati today and they said, hey, you're good with them going for 2, right? My answer would be, kinda. Because the moment you decide to kick the extra point with 40 seconds left, now the other team doesn't have the same ability to get all 4 downs to move the ball downfield. And now you've got to think about if you say throw 2 incompletions on 1st and 2nd down and the Bengals still have a timeout, you've got to think about whether or not you really want to give them the ball back with 30 seconds left. It becomes more of a game of chess. With 20 seconds left, unquestionably, I'm going for 2. With 40 seconds left, it's a little trickier. Especially with the team having timeouts and, Lamar Jackson. It's a little trickier because there is more of a likelihood that they can't just... Once you're down by a point and you have to score, you're opening up the playbook. When it's a tie game and you still have overtime in your back pocket and you can't make a mistake that gives them the ball back and allows them to win in regulation, you might have to change the way that you call your plays. So that'd be the only thing I would say. It doesn't matter because they went for 2 and they didn't get it.
Well, they go for 1. I mean, they kick the extra point and they could still lose 2. So
100% they could still lose. 100%.
Put the pressure on more. Justin Tucker is appearing to be human.
That would be part of the argument, but I would say it's not as... Some scenarios, it's obvious. And if they had scored with 20 seconds left, it's obvious. 40 seconds, there's more room for argument about it than some people are giving it. Some people will just say, well, you always go. That's complicated. I don't know what the time number. 40 seconds is. If there's 1 minute left, there's no chance in hell.
If Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes are on the other side, yes.
1 minute left. But I don't know what the answer is of 40 seconds left. I don't know if we have enough research to know. Maybe Aaron Schatz would tell me, what should we do? I don't know. But I keep coming back to it. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson. That's the story. As much as we're going to obsess over the defense. And I get it. We're going to. And I'm not telling you shouldn't. The story is one team has this generational Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, another team has a different one. And for what it's worth, Joe Burrow is damn close. And you tip your cap, man, because Joe Burrow was getting hit all night and was still brilliant. Joe Burrow's incredible. It's why all season long I continue to tell you that I don't think the Bengals are dead. I can't write them off because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are still living and breathing. Imagine if they had to face T. Higgins last night, too. And the possibility is they might have to do it again in the playoffs. But you know why I'll feel good? Because one of these teams will have Lamar Jackson. And that's the reality, the identity of the football team. The Ravens decided to pay Lamar Jackson an absurd amount of money because he's Lamar Jackson. And that does mean that inevitably there will be other areas. It does mean that if you miss on a draft pick, the way the Ravens appear to have missed on David Ajabo, there is a greater penalty that comes with that. Serious. We got to talk about it. This is the revisionist history that we do about Joe Flacco is saying, well, it's Joe Flacco's contract killed the Ravens. So Joe Flacco's contract combined with dramatically whiffing over and over again on early draft picks in the immediacy that followed. The worst drafting era of the Baltimore Ravens, that killed the Ravens. Now, for what it's worth, Zay Flowers, that wasn't a miss. That was a hit. This hasn't been nearly as bad as the immediacy following. Remember, the immediacy following Joe Flacco's contract was Matt Elam, Terrence Brooks, Arthur Brown, Rashad Perriman. I mean, it's Kamalai Correa.
It's almost impressive.
Bronson Kafusi. I mean, it's an absurd.
Should have just been throwing darts.
Tim Jernigan was in there. Like it's an.
He was a player sometimes.
It is insane looking back at how. I mean,
I think he could stop the run, couldn't
he? Sorta. C.J. Mosley was the biggest hit, and even he was like nobody was all that sad to see him go. It was brutal. He
had that interception against the Browns.
Yes, he did have that one play that we remember. A brutal era of drafting for the Baltimore Ravens. Like an ungodly era. And you can't survive those two things. You're seeing how much it hurts to have whiffed on a second-round pick right now. It is killing them that they whiffed on a second-round pick. Because they don't have answers. Although, in fairness, last night they got the thing we kept saying, they need more pressure. They got plenty of pressure last night. Now, part of it was with Orlando Brown out. That was a favorable matchup that they should be winning. But, and Odafe Owe regularly won it, but it wasn't translating to get Joe Burrow on the ground. Justin Madubuike did that a few times, although at least one of those sacks was when Joe Burrow was running outside the pocket and he didn't. It made it. I'm not trying to take it away from him by any stretch of the imagination. But there's a difference between
Joe hit Burrow decided to run near Madubuike.
That's a great point. Actually, Madubuike tracked him down with his speed, which is as they pointed out on the broadcast, truly amazing that a man that size had the speed in order to go get him. I don't want to take anything away, but I keep coming back to the story of last night is you have Lamar Jackson. And when you have Lamar Jackson, you can win every game you play. It's the thing I said about the disappointing part that we don't talk about the Browns game is that despite everything, it was still a game they should have won because they got the ball back with Lamar Jackson and a chance to win. And that doesn't mean that I think Lamar Jackson let them down. That wasn't the story. But every time they have the ball late with a chance to win, I'm going to assume they're going to win. That's the story of Lamar Jackson. And it's, to be fair, the story of Patrick Mahomes. And we can all hand-wring about, well, but he hasn't won a Super Bowl. This is the thing my buddy Kevin Van Valkenburg said about Dan Marino, right? Like, Dan Marino is one of the greatest quarterbacks we ever saw play the game. He never won a Super Bowl. I don't know, because I can't see the future if Lamar Jackson's going to win a Super Bowl. But what I know is in watching him, you're watching a generational talent and one of the greatest players ever to lace him up in the NFL. And because of that, when you're in this situation, I have every reason to believe you're going to win. That's the reality. And they did last night. It wasn't pretty. It was damn close. But they won.
Andrew Stecker points out they are 1-0 in the purple helmets.
Yes, he still loves those helmets. Loves them. He's also 0-1 in predictions about when the game is over. So got that going for him. All right. Our next guest was in Baltimore last night for Thursday Night Football for NFL Network. He is Cameron Wolfe, and he is with us this morning here on GCR. Cameron, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Not all Thursday Night Football games are made equal. That one was sure as hell worth the price of admission.
Absolutely. I will take that type of game every single Thursday night if I could get it. Right.
I mean, the antacid makers in the Baltimore area would also take that type of game every Thursday night.
Yeah. We had a slow start in the first half, but I figure it's only because none of us would have survived for 60 minutes of it.
Oh my! Could you imagine if it had been that for 60 minutes? Holy cow! Cameron, it's a twofold thing for me that I'm talking about this morning because I acknowledge there are defensive issues, serious defensive issues for the Baltimore Ravens. Part of this is we're not used to this in Baltimore. People of a certain age, what we remember of Ravens football is watching offense was like, sandpaper to your backside. Like it was unpleasant for a long time. We're not used to this. But the other part of it is you'd rather be balanced. Everyone would rather be balanced. But sometimes you just win football games because you have, in the past it was Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees, and the other team doesn't. And right now, as great as Joe Burrow is, and my God was he great last night, the reminder is you have Lamar Jackson and other teams don't, and you're going to win a boatload of football games because of it.
Yeah, it's the great chess piece, the great Trump piece, so to speak. On you can get away with a lot of stuff with a guy like Lamar, and I know it's not comfortable. I know in the film room, today they'll probably be, or maybe Monday when they get back, discussing all the and. Now, I was in the Ravens locker room. Marlon Humphrey talked about, hey, it doesn't feel great, satisfying to, look up and you give up 300 passing yards every game. So there's definitely things for this team to improve. But I think this is the best version of Lamar that we've ever seen. And I think that's what makes him extremely dangerous. You've got to have a quarterback that you can count on going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes at the end of it because he's going to be there. Every single year, the Chiefs are there. And this year more than ever, I think you've got to feel great about in the game situation. We've got Lamar, and this year we feel good.
Cameron, what is the line between last night? There's a weird feeling that I have about last night's game where because we know the issues the defense has had all season long, we're going to overreact to nights like that. But in a weird way, they also were way more aggressive and got way more pressure on Joe Burrow than we had seen the Ravens defense get in the weeks leading up to that. I don't know what the line is between, my God, this defense is atrocious, and, hey, sometimes you also have to tip your cap to the incredibly good quarterback and wide receiver that are on the other side of the field. All right.
Thing that you watch every single week. Jamar had an incredible day every time the Ravens play. They play the Ravens. Pass rush wasn't optimism there. They didn't blitz a lot, honestly. So they got home a lot with their front four, which was a good sign for them. But the reality is this is a flawed team. Luckily for them, FC is flawed. There's not they don't have any flaws. Like the Chiefs right now are going through a lot of struggles with their offense. The Bills are still trying to find a consistent identity with their team, particularly offensively, without their weapons week to week. And so the Ravens' Achilles heel is their pass defense. They have the worst pass defense in football, and it looked like it last night, and that's going to hurt you. And so some point in December, January, you're going to have to figure out how to win a game that's not 35-31 or 42-38. But I come out of this game more than anything saying, because of what we saw from Lamar, because of what we saw when their back was on the wall, like this used to be a Ravens team. If you got them down 14 points with their style of play, that was it, because they're a run-heavy team. I think Lamar coming back twice against that Bengals team, double digits, gives me more confidence about what they can do in January than worry about what their defense is going to prevent them to do.
I think it's well said. Cameron Wolfe is with us. He was in Baltimore last night for NFL Network. Cameron, it was interesting. They did try to utilize Deontay. This is the crazy part to me. Like, they put Keaton Mitchell on the field for a couple of snaps. They did try to utilize Deontay Johnson a bit, but there's still a lot of room for those guys to be more involved. They didn't have Isaiah Likely last night. The nuts part is how good they were offensively, and yet I still think they can be even better than that, which is, I know that sounds like blasphemous when you say they were still committing penalties up front needlessly. Like, they did all of that despite the fact that I don't even know that they played as well as they're capable of playing offensively.
Nah, I think that's a great point. I think they played a C or D level offensive game in that first half.
Crazy.
And then they turned up and played their ball, A-level ball in the second half. But, usually you don't get away with playing one half of good ball against a talented but obviously not great record Bengals team. But I think that shows you maybe the ceiling of this team. I think when I was watching them, and you mentioned the two guys that, the Keaton Mitchell, I think he's going to end up having a much bigger role.
Yep.
His first game back from a short week, I think you're just kind of easing him in. But I think you'll eventually see him take over, much of Justice Hill's role as Derek's main backup, and he'll provide that, that speed to Derek's, thunder and speed. But Deontay, I think he will get more involved. But I also think they've got a blessing of, for the first time in a long time for the Ravens, having a little bit of wide receiver depth. Rashad Bateman has had a really nice year. He stayed healthy. Zay Flowers has kind of solidified himself as a number one there. And then how about Tylan Wallace, coming in and making playmakers so when you've got 3 or 4 guys who are making plays, sometimes you don't, sometimes your new guys take a back seat just because of the comfort within the offense and you're having success otherwise. So I'm with you. I think you'll see those guys become more heavily involved starting next week against the Steelers. You'll see Trey White on the field next week against the Steelers. So some of these things, you hope over time makes this team more complete. But I am curious, this week is going to be a very important one next week against the Steelers because it's a different style of team. For a while, you mentioned it earlier, the Ravens have been this grit defense first team. Do they still have it in them is a question that I definitely want to see. And the Steelers will answer that question, in Pittsburgh against a team that wants to be physical on both sides of the ball. Can you still grit out a win if you need to is a key question.
That's a very fair point. Cameron, we acknowledge, 1, that the season is not over, and that 2, even if the Lamar Jackson is a third-time MVP, he's won it twice and they don't have a Super Bowl to show for it yet, right? They would obviously trade in all of those things. I think that Jared Goff's having a great season. I think Jaden Daniels. I think there are other. Josh Allen's outstanding. But it's almost offensive to me because watching this cat is like watching someone playing a different sport than everyone else. I just don't know how to compare any of these guys who are good, really good, potential future Hall of Famers. The literal definition of the word valuable, I don't think it is possible to do more or to say anything other than just watch Lamar Jackson play football and tell me how there can be a more valuable player.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that, Patrick Mahomes will go down, in my opinion, as maybe the greatest player to ever play this sport because of his winning.
Right.
But I think Lamar may go out as maybe the most talented quarterback to ever play this game. I think that is something that just maybe surprised some people, but I just look at the way he plays the game and the fear that he drives in on defense. I cover teams around the league every week. I was on pregame talking to Bengals coaches, and every single coach just was throwing their hands up of there's nothing you can do with them.
Right.
There used to be a time where you could say, hey, we're going to go cover 0 blitz on him, and we're going to send it after him, and he won't be able to process it quick enough, and we're going to get after him. He's evolved that.
Now he's the highest-rated quarterback in the league against the blitz.
Development. He's developed where he will torch you if you blitz. Some teams will drop 8 in coverage and say, hey, we'll make him pick. He will torch you on that. And then when you want to load up the box and stop the run, you see them be able to throw the ball over your head. And so there's really nothing you can do. You hope that the Ravens do what they did in the first half and beat themselves with penalties. And that's really the only way to stop this team. And I think that's what makes Lamar so dangerous. I think Josh Allen's maybe the only other guy that affects a game with his legs and arm the same way. But even that is still different because Josh is more of a power player, whereas Lamar's speed is just so tantalizing that, you can barely touch him. Josh, you'll touch him, you have trouble getting him down. And so, I'm with you. I think he's by far the front runner to the MVP. And if they continue to win, if they end up being an 11, 12-plus win team, I don't see how he doesn't get that award.
And then I'll wrap with this, Cameron. I still look. I've said all season I don't think the Bengals are dead, right? Like I can't think the Bengals are dead. They have Joe Burrow. They have Lamar Jackson. The vibes are off. Clearly, there is something weird going on. But they also came within, a questionable call from having a lead late. There's still. I'm telling you, Cameron, this is how much I think of Lamar Jackson. If the Ravens get the ball back down 1 with 39 seconds left, I think the Ravens are winning that football game anyway last night. Or at least lining up for a Justin Tucker kick, and then maybe we can question whether or not that would have worked out. But I just can't proclaim them dead. Like, they have too much top-level talent for me to not think that they're going to have as good of a chance as any to figure it out, particularly with the 7th spot in the AFC being utterly wide open at this point.
For sure. The Bengals are such an interesting spot because they're too talented to be 4-6. But they've had some heartbreaking losses, like 2 losses to the Ravens. Those were games they had double-digit leads on. And like you said, penalty goes this way, a play goes this way. You're looking at that game differently. They had another heartbreaking loss earlier this season against the Commanders, a game I was at. They had another one against the Chiefs. So they've really got a short end of pretty much every close game they played. But I'm with you. If they can figure out how to, solidify some things defensively, I started to look at their schedule late last night. It's not that difficult. I mean, they got the Chargers this upcoming week, and that might be, that's a game in L.A. where they've got to figure out how to grit out, and they've got the Steelers twice. But other than that, you got the Cowboys, the Titans, the Browns on that schedule, and those are all teams that they can win. And so, can this team get to 9-8 or 10-7 and sneak in a win? I can certainly see it, especially with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase playing the way they are. But they got to get it together now, and it's really a testament of how you win in the fourth quarter. I think culture defines who wins those close games, and I think the Ravens have just kind of showed a different level of mindset of culture that I don't know if the Bengals have at this stage. Talent may be equal. I don't think that culture and mindset is equal for those two teams.
I think that's fair. Cameron, what's next on the docket for you, my man?
I have a weekend off.
Nice.
The good thing about Thursday is I'm heading to the airport now. I live in South Florida, so heading back to South Florida, and I will watch some games this weekend, and I'll be back on the road next weekend, either in Pittsburgh for the Ravens Steelers, or I'll be in Buffalo for Bills Chiefs, one of those two.
Yeah, those are 2 decent games. Not a bad pair to be choosing from. At Cameron Wolfe is how you give him a follow on Twitter. Cameron, really appreciate it, man. Thanks for squeezing in a couple minutes for us this morning.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
That's Cameron Wolfe, NFL Network reporter. That's not a bad life, right? You go from that game last night, and they're like, all right, well, one of your assignment next week is either going to be Baltimore, Pittsburgh, or Kansas City, Buffalo. I'm like, okay, I guess, if you insist. I always feel bad for, like, the 5th broadcast crew for either Fox or CBS. Because, like, the first couple of weeks of the season, you're still getting good because we don't know yet, right? Like, we don't know who's really definitively.
Everyone's usually healthy, too.
Right. And then you get to about week 8, week 9.
Panthers just trade away half their roster,
Right. And you're looking down like, oh, that's our assignment this week, huh? Okay.
We got Panthers Saints.
And the best hope is that you get one good team in your game. Like the Tom McCarthy, Ross Tucker, Jay Feely crew. That's a good crew, right? Like, that's a very professional crew. But they're, on the totem pole, they're just a little bit lower. And so when they got Ravens-Browns, they were like, oh, thank God. There's a good team. That's
a heck of a game.
That's the best you can hope for. Now, as it turns out, yes, obviously it ends up being a really good football game. But, like, the best you can hope for is just give me a good team. Like, give me the one that looks like a dud on paper because it's a really good team versus a really bad team. Because the thing you could also get is the 2 really bad teams. But, yeah. Cameron Wolfe's assignment list, not so bad. Not so bad. That's decent. All right. Hey, the place to find out. It's high school football playoff season at the public school level, and it's playoff season all throughout fall sports at the high school level. So follow everything, brackets, updates, scores, schedules, everything you need to know by going to countysports.zone. That's countysports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. When we come back in, our buddy Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer. I guess I never told him that. Oh,
That's on me.
That's not good. We don't want that. I don't think I ever told everybody what's coming up on the program. Cameron Wolfe was coming up on the program. He joined us. Bo's going to come up on the program. And then later on, our friend Trey Wingo will join us. And also this morning, we will catch up with my old buddy Brandon Williams, who, as you saw this week, made his retirement formal from the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens and was the legend of the game last night. Or what's left of Brandon Williams, because he's dropped some LBs. Love that guy. And he got his feelings hurt once in Papa-Shot. Unlike Brandon Stokely, who's the only Ravens player that ever beat me in Papa-Shot, Brandon Williams knows what it's like to be on the wrong end of things. I don't have a lot of skills, but that's one of them. That's all coming up on a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between our on-site tellers or the convenience of our self-bet kiosks to place your bets. Gather your betting buddies and head over to the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks today. Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. The ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Hey Baltimore, it's number 10, Arthur Millette, and I'm hoping you'll slot us in all season long for the Arthur Millette Show. We will be traveling around the region all season, giving you the chance to get to know me and my teammates. There will be some football talk and a lot more. You can watch this show live on PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages and listen every Friday night on 105.7 The Fan. Find out more at PressBoxOnline.com/Millette. The Arthur Millette Show, the only show in town that's a work of art.
The next Arthur Millette Show is Tuesday, November 12th at Mother's North Grill in Timonium. It's brought to you by 1-800-GAMBLER and Easy Pass.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Friday edition of the program. No Stan the Fan today, but if you're missing your Stan the Fan fix, go to Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. And you can check out the show that he did with Ross Grimsley and Luke Jackson earlier this week, kind of putting the finishing touches on the baseball season. and looking ahead to the offseason and all of the many moves the Baltimore Orioles are clearly going to make. Like, we're just waiting. Max Fried. It's happening, right? It's a thing. They also were who reported they're in on Teoscar Hernandez as well.
I didn't see that one.
So they're getting all of them.
Sweet.
All of them are going to be Orioles. Probably not. But I'm not opposed. So Stan, Ross, and Luke, we're talking about all of that. And, again, you can go to any of those locations, facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stan will be doing regular videos, and those guys will be getting back together when news warrants during the offseason. And it's, as always, brought to you by the Costas Inn. Speaking of which, we're doing a Friday edition of Pats on the Ass today, brought to you by the Costas Inn. You want to win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn? All you got to do, tweet us at Glenn Clark Radio with your Pats on the Ass for last night's game. Pick 5 Ravens, 2 must be offensive players, 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be whatever you'd like, special teams player, coach, another offensive player, another defensive player. Rank them 5-1, with number 1 being your man of the match. Get me your list. As soon as you do, you are registered to win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. Joining us now, as he does every Friday, he is PressBox's Ravens beat writer, Bo Smolka, and he's with us here on GCR. Bo, good morning, sir. That was sure something last night.
Yes, it was. Good morning.
I am not sure where the line is anymore, Bo, because, look, this is combined with, obviously, the fact that the Ravens didn't make a significant upgrade up front at the deadline. This is what they are defensively, and it's concerning, and it's alarming, and it's very confusing for a lot of people in Baltimore whose history of watching football was entirely based on defense. But last night is the reminder that your margin for error is small. It's not easy to do. But when you have a future Hall of Fame quarterback and one of the greatest at this point to ever play the position, you're going to have chances to win, and maybe you really can keep winning even as your defense struggles the way that it's been struggling.
I mean, you can do that sometimes. I don't think it's sustainable, and I wrote that this morning. And frankly, Marlon Humphrey said as much last night. Marlon Humphrey was very candid in the locker room, and I'll say I only read his comments because I was actually talking to Brandon Stevens at the time that Humphrey had a gaggle around his locker. But he basically said, we can't go this far playing like this. And he's right. I mean, Lamar Jackson is playing at a ridiculously high level, and as we've seen, it's barely enough. And so if he were to fall off even just a little bit, they come up short. If the defense continues to play like that, it's not sustainable. But you're right. I mean, they did what they did at the trade deadline. They're adding a cornerback, and maybe that will help. And let's face it, not every team has Jamar Chase, who just is an absolute Ravens killer. And Joe Burrow is just he's just so they're both so good against the Ravens. But when you get to a playoff run, you're going to face good quarterbacks, you're going to face good receivers. And again, if Lamar Jackson is not playing at an elite level, the way this defense is playing, it won't be good enough. And they all know it.
Yeah, Bo,
John Harbaugh must have said twice last night, and players did as well. You talked about that. You mentioned the fans. I mean, this isn't the standard. This isn't what Ravens defense ever looks like. But we're 10 games in, and it's looked like it all year.
And this is the funny part. Like, there are elements of what you're saying that I completely agree with, and I would just say it in a different way, because I feel like when the Drew Brees Saints won the Super Bowl, I'm going to guess there were people that were saying, well, we can't just keep doing this with Drew having to do it every time. I think we have evidence that there are times that a quarterback really can just play this way, and I am at the place where I believe that if the Bengals had scored, if they had gotten the call at the 2-point conversion and they had gone in from the 1-yard line the following play, my entire thought process is, as long as Justin Tucker can make a kick, and I get that's a scary proposition at the moment, that the Ravens with 39 seconds left and 2 timeouts were going to win the football game anyway. Like, I'm just at a place right now where Lamar Jackson, to me, is impervious of all of these things. He has become one of the greatest to ever play the game, and I know that we measure that by Super Bowls, and he's still got to do it, but from pure talent and ability, I can't question that if they have any chance to win a game and he has anything to do about it, I'm almost always going to believe that he's going to do it.
And you can do that. I mean, and he's played like it. There's no doubt about it. And I actually agree with you. I thought that if they had gone ahead by 1, let's face it, the Bengals hadn't done anything to stop the Ravens either.
Right.
And you mentioned they had 38 seconds, I believe it was, left. They probably would have, if they kick a touchback, they probably needed 30, 35 yards. But again, now let's not, Justin Tucker is no longer automatic. And that's another question for another day. But I think they would have been, I agree with you. I think they would have been in position to make a field goal to win the game. I think 38 seconds would have been enough with the way the Lamar Jackson's playing and the way the Bengals defense was playing. But honestly, it's going to, you made reference to it. Everything about Lamar Jackson is going to roll into what does he do in the playoffs. There's no escaping it. And we can't know that until that point comes. But you're right. He's playing as well as 24 interceptions or touchdowns, rather, 24 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The plays he makes out of nothing, the scramble for 10 yards where he nearly scored last night, I mean, that's one that I don't think anyone else in the league even considers making that run at that point on the field. So it's just, and the touch on some of the throws, the jump throw to Bateman, the across the body to Mark Andrews, it was perfectly placed. He's just in a complete zone right now. And again, it's barely enough with the way defense is playing.
He is Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer. He's with us here on GCR. Bo, the other thing that's weird about last night is that there were actually encouraging things about the defense. Like the thing that we had talked about for the last couple of weeks is that while the sack numbers had held up, the pressures were disastrous and the time that opposing quarterbacks had to throw were disastrous. Well, that wasn't the case last night. Now, again, there are still the lapses in the secondary are befuddling, and every time Marcus Williams does like one positive thing, it always seems to be that it's followed up with insanely getting lost when he's the one that's supposed to be going with Jamar Chase down the field. So there are massive problems, but I don't know what the line is between saying, hey, they actually played pretty well up front last night. You just kind of have to tip your cap to Joe Burrow, who was really otherworldly while he was under relentless pressure.
No, they did. They got to him. I mean, and Burrow is a complete competitor. He is tough as nails. And they hit him 13 times in the game last night. And early especially, he just couldn't get in rhythm. He was getting forced off his spot. He was running out of trouble. And to his credit, he rolled out. He bought time and he made plays, but he got hammered as well. And he's just a tough player. So they should be encouraged by that. Now, granted, Orlando Brown wasn't playing. The Bengals offensive line was a little shorthanded, but they did. They got the pressure. They didn't get him down as much as they wanted, but Matabike had 3 sacks, and they did get pressure. And I was among those critics of DeCosta for not addressing the pass rush at the trade deadline. But they were able to really get Burrow unsettled, especially early. He was, I think, maybe 50% throwing in the first half, and several times in key spots early in that game, Burrow had to make a throw under duress that went incomplete, and that helped really kind of set them back. Because remember, it was a low-scoring game for 2.5 quarters. Because the Ravens pass rush did a great job, especially early, but really all through the game. And like I said, when you hit Burrow 13 times, he just stood in there and took shots, and that's who he is.
Hopefully the news does not end up being that bad for Kyle Hamilton. I do think that also complicates this conversation that, like, in the second half, they didn't have their best player by a billion on the field. It goes without saying that if he misses even a game next week against the Steelers, the Ravens are a much different group without him being on the field.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, when it went down, I think everyone in the stadium, it looked bad. I mean, it was no contact. He crumbled to the turf, and I don't know if you were in the stadium, but you could hear a pin drop in that stadium when he went down, and it looked like an Achilles injury to me, the way he went down and the way he stayed down, but it was encouraging that he got up and walked off, limped off, and then went to the locker room. So after the game, John Harbaugh said it didn't seem serious. We don't hear from John Harbaugh again now until Monday. Players have this kind of mini bye they really enjoy. But I would be surprised right now if he plays in 10 days. But again, it's very early to know that, but everything changes about that defense if he's not out there. So we'll know more later. It doesn't appear to be as bad as initially it looked. And so that's encouraging, but he's he does change their defense. There's no doubt about it. He had a play last night where he batted the ball, and honestly, he batted it too squarely, and he knocked it backwards and down. It was a lot like the play against Cleveland. He intercepted and returned for a touchdown last year. Made a couple really nice plays breaking on the ball, the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's everywhere on the field, and he's a huge loss if he's out for any extended time.
Let's talk about Justin Tucker. It's not the first time we've talked about Justin Tucker, and it's a painful conversation to have. Bo, I don't know what the exact – because the answer isn't that you're cutting Justin Tucker, right? Like they're not doing that. But I don't know at this point, and I presented this. I don't know that it's crazy to suggest that you want to have a kicker on your practice squad at this point, because whether it's to send a message or whether it's really just sort of saying, hey – If this keeps happening for another 4 weeks, there is going to come a point where we're going to have to do something. And I don't know if that's the insanity of having 2 kickers on your roster, which is unheard of in the NFL. But, again, you're not cutting Justin Tucker. I think that just continue to try to gaslight it and make it go away, and we're not worried about Justin. That can't be the answer moving forward.
That's a conversation they're going to have. And we asked John Harbaugh about this on Monday this week, about is there any issue with the operation, as Tucker likes to call it. And John was kind of terse and said, no, the operation's fine. The operation's fine. Justin Tucker's good. And then he said last night he just thought it was a bad swing from Tucker, is how Harbaugh described. I didn't get to talk to Tucker afterwards, but no, it has to be a conversation. It just, when he trots on the field now, it just doesn't quite feel as certain or as comfortable, and it can't. I don't know that. I think that, this year it's that. I do think in other years they've often brought in a kicker in maybe the third week of training camp to kind of handle the last game. And sometimes they have a kicker all through training camp. And those guys, like Will Lutz was one, and he's turned it into a nice NFL career after knowing he had no chance to make the Ravens roster. Well, next year I think you bring in a kicker for training camp, and you send a message to Tucker that you have competition now. This is going to be a legitimate kicking competition, and you need to win this job this summer. And I think that's something they'll have to do. And it's interesting. One day at practice, we don't get to see a whole lot of practice, but we see special teams. They're often doing kicking or kick return, punt return, that kind of thing. And then they go into individual drills. And then we have to leave because they're going to get into plays they run, and we're not allowed to watch that. But at one point, maybe a week and a half ago, I saw most of during the special teams when kick return was working on their plays, Stout and Tucker were off to the side, and it seemed like Stout was really trying to really emphasize the hold. And I hadn't seen that before. And it seemed there's something they recognize something just isn't right, and it's obvious that it's not right, and things are not going the way they should be going. But you're right that it's a conversation they're going to have, and I think they're going to bring in a kicker next summer and make Tucker compete for his job.
It's funny. I brought it up, I think, with you before. Like, he's just, since the dissolution of the Wolfpack, he's not been the same at all. Like, he's not. Now, it started with just long kicks. Like, it at first was just, hey, he's not always making those. But the reality is, like, since that trio has been broken up, he has not ever been the same guy that was the greatest kicker. And he used to joke about, say that, like, I'm a system kicker, and we always would laugh about it. But, my God, I have spent a lot of time thinking about that over the course of the last year, Bo, that I don't know how much of it was just the comfort that those 3 guys had together for many years that made the operation so freaking perfect.
I mean, I think there's something to it, and I don't know whether that's on the holder Nick Moore or the snapper Nick Moore, the holder Stout, right, Tucker, the timing, all of it, and he does call it an operation. And when he's made a big kick in the past, he's always been quick to credit the snap and the hold, and it all is part and parcel of the whole thing. And so it's probably right to say, well, it's not just a matter of Tucker's leg is getting weaker or Tucker's mechanics, he's getting older. I think there is something to the whole operation, and whether John Harbaugh says it or not, something with the operation is not right. It's clearly not right, and it's up to them to figure out why not.
I assume that it was always most likely that we were going to see sort of a step up for Deontay Johnson and maybe now Keaton Mitchell after this. You keep bringing up the mini bye. But I still don't know exactly where specifically Deontay Johnson finds himself like on the depth chart. Like I think that it's more likely that he's more involved, but I don't know that the Ravens think that Deontay Johnson has to be on the field. I've always kind of thought that move was as much about depth as it was anything else.
I agree with that. I mean, they're going to look the way their team wants to play. There's going to be times they only have 2 wide receivers on the field, and they're most likely going to be Flowers and Bateman. Aguilar is in the mix there. We saw what Tylan Wallace can do in little stretches.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Deontay Johnson. I agree with you. I thought it was a depth signing. Again, it wasn't a costly signing. And I think that
acquisition,
trade.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. I think that what's going to happen is he's there. I think his role will be rationed or about maybe a little more than what it's been. But again, this is not a team that's going to trot out 4 and 5 receivers very often. When they're winning, they're going to be running the ball. And so I think we'll see him in doses. Now, he was wide open on a play last night, and he actually stumbled and fell.
Yeah.
So I think there's chances for him in spots, but I don't think we're going to see him as a 60-70% snap guy.
Well, and he also did make a bigger catch later in the game, right? Like, you give him credit for that, and that's whatever he's going to be on the field for, he's going to have to take advantage of, because I think you and I agree. But I'll wrap with
Tylan Wallace is exactly that, right?
Yep.
And he talked about that after the game. This is a guy that he had 2 catches all year before this and hardly ever plays on offense. And he said after the game, look, what I learned in my career here is you just have to stay ready, and you have to be when your time comes. And talk about a guy making the most of his chances.
No question.
But good for him.
Yep, 100%. Good for him. And then, Bo, I'll wrap with this because it was presented to me last night. I am always, whenever anybody goes into the world of firing coaches, I roll my eyes. And particularly the notion of moving on from a coach that hasn't been here for even a year. But I'll ask if it's insane. Like I couldn't believe they fired Cam Cameron in December when it ended up being the difference in them going and winning a Super Bowl. If this doesn't get better, is there a point where maybe it's not firing, Zach Orr, but it's they add someone to be like a co-defensive? Like, at what point can we not just keep saying, well, hey, I don't think he's coaching the players to be out of position, and question whether or not the message is getting through? I feel like it's not as insane as people present it to say just continuing to do the same thing and getting the same results. We're talking about the definition of insanity at some point.
I don't know. It would 3 weeks ago. This question has come up before, and it seemed harsh and rash, and to think you're going to sack Zach Orr or demote Zach Orr halfway through his first year as coordinator. I mean, something has to get fixed in this defense. Early in that game last night, they had to take a timeout because they had 12 defenders on the field, and it again looked disorganized at times. Obviously, they're missing. There's questions. There's problems. Bring someone in. They already did that with Dean Pease, right, as some sort of advising role. Now, whether that's the move or they make another move, remember, they're also hurt. They lost 3 really good defensive coaches in the offseason, in McDonald and Wilson and Weaver, and they all left for different teams. And those are big losses. And the Ravens made their choice to go with Zach Orr as defensive coordinator. I would be surprised still if John Harbaugh, he did make that move with Cam Cameron. He did fire Mark Trestman midseason 1 year as the offensive coordinator. He's made coordinator changes in midseason before. I would be surprised if he makes that move now with the guy in his first year. But he acknowledged as much as anyone that things have to change, and that's going to be up to Harbaugh to figure out how to do it.
At B Smolka is how you follow him on Twitter. You can see all of his stuff at PressBoxOnline.com. Bo, appreciate you, sir. We'll talk to you next week ahead of Ravens Steelers.
All right, Steeler week. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer, with us here on GCR. I don't think it's going to happen, but what I would tell you guys is it's not crazy to ask. Now, some of it is crazy. Like my buddy Randy Morgan last night was, what about Bill Belichick? It's just, here's something that I do think is practical.
Well, what about Bill Belichick?
You got 10 days. John Harbaugh's friendly with Bill Belichick. He calls him and says, dude, can I just send you this stuff? I just want your thoughts. Can I have you take a look at some stuff and tell me what you think? Like, Bill Belichick didn't fully commit to getting into this world of media to suddenly halfway through the season say, you know what? I'd rather go be the co-defensive coordinator in Baltimore. That's just not practical. If Bill Belichick wasn't doing all that stuff, if he hadn't jumped so firmly into that world, if he was just sitting at home, I still wouldn't think it likely, but it would be less crazy. It is kind of crazy to think that someone that has made so many commitments, and it's not just the Pat McAfee show. He's doing a lot of ESPN, and he's doing
a podcast with
Underdog, and he's doing Inside the NFL, and he committed to this world. Now, that can be revisited after football season. And if there's a head coach job that he wants, he'll take it after
Jeff Saturday, left the studio.
I understand, but that's Jeff Saturday ain't Bill Belichick. The numbers that were involved for what Bill Belichick is getting to do this stuff is astronomical. And I'm telling you from a business standpoint, what he's – I don't know fully what the numbers are, but I am aware of some of it because I know some people that were trying to work with Bill Belichick. Walking away from that is really unlikely. In the middle of the season. After the season, all up in the air again. But just having the conversation, can you keep doing the exact same thing? Because, and we talked about it last night on the postgame, Femi's right. There's no way that Zach Orr is coaching Marcus Williams to ditch Jamar Chase in favor of a tight end. No way. But if the message isn't getting through, the message isn't getting through. And you can't pretend like it's not happening either. We'll come back in, get Trey Wingo's thoughts on what he saw last night. So we roll along. Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
PressBox's Project Game Day is the place to be after every game this season. Join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Ayanbadejo, and our cast of regulars as they break down what happened, why it mattered, and what it means moving forward. You can watch the show at PressBoxOnline.com/GameDay or PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages. Project Game Day is brought to you by the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson and Canton, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. So join us for Project Game Day after every game day this football season at PressBoxOnline.com/GameDay.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between our on-site tellers or the convenience of our self-bet kiosks to place your bets. Gather your betting buddies and head over to the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks today. Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. The ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along here on a Friday edition of the program. The Arthur Millette Show returns this Tuesday night. We will be at Mother's North Grill in Timonium with myself, Rita, Arthur, and his special guest. Come hang out with us for the Arthur Millette Show. Tuesday night, Mother's North Grill in Timonium. We'll start at 7. PressBoxOnline.com/Millette is how you find out more. It's brought to you by Easy Pass and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. Arthur Millette Show, Tuesday night. We will see you there. Continue to discuss what was a wild, wild game last night. Joining us now, one of our favorites. He's now with DraftKings. He is our buddy Trey Wingo, and he's back with us here on GCR. Trey, it's Glenn. I still feel like I need a cigarette after last night. Appreciate you taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Well, that means it was good for you, so congratulations. Well done. It was quite a game.
It was quite a game. There's no doubt about it. Trey, I want to have this conversation because I don't want to pretend like I don't think the Ravens have a serious defensive problem. I think they do. But I also don't know what it was like to be in New Orleans when Drew Brees was playing masterfully, and they didn't have a dominant defense for the first few years of that, and they did win a Super Bowl. I don't know what it was like every year in Indianapolis when sometimes they had good defenses and sometimes they didn't. What I know is that Lamar Jackson is doing things that few human beings have ever been capable of doing, and that even if the Bengals had gotten the call last night and had gotten the 2-point conversion, I think the Ravens were going to win anyway because they had 39 seconds, 2 timeouts, and Lamar Jackson. So it's a weird place where I'm in where I don't want to be dismissive of it, but I can't pretend like I think the defensive problems outweigh the benefit of having Lamar Jackson.
Well, listen, I think what you just said is absolutely true. Like you're not giving up Lamar Jackson to have a better defense. So the way you put that, I think, is accurate. But there is a 2-part discussion here. So let's start with the positive, and then we'll move on to the other stuff.
Sure.
Lamar he's historically doing things that you just don't see. That's 8 straight games with a passer rating of over 125. He went into this game with the 3rd best passer rating over a 7-game stretch in NFL history. The only 2 quarterbacks with a higher number of any 7-game stretch since 1970 would be Tom Brady during their Patriots' perfect regular season in 2007 and Drew Brees in 2018. So yeah, we're doing just bonkers type stuff, and he did it again. For example, this was the 4th game this year where he had a passer rating of over 135 and 3 or more touchdowns. Every other quarterback combined in the league is accountable for 7 of those. So he's the outlier of outliers right now. And, clearly on a night where Derrick Henry wasn't the dominant force that we've seen him be for most of this season, it didn't matter because Lamar was able to make the plays he was able to make. So you are absolutely correct to say I don't want to do anything that would diminish the idea of us having Lamar Jackson. So he's certainly on pace for a 3rd MVP.
Okay.
But there is the other side of this. There is the other side of this. And I say this wholeheartedly so people understand. The way that defense is playing right now, they're not winning a damn thing. Now, that doesn't mean that can't change. And you brought up the Colts, and the best example I can give you of that is in a December game in 2006, Week 14. The Colts went down to Jacksonville and lost 44-17, and they gave up 375 yards rushing. The only thing that stopped Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor in that game was the end zone. If the end zone didn't exist, they might have run for 6,000 yards in that game. because the Colts weren't doing anything to stop them. And I'll never forget, after the game, Tony Dungy said, guys, this is fixable. We can fix it. It's just little simple mistakes that we're making. And all of us were like, okay, yeah, right.
Right.
So then they go into the postseason, right, that year. The Colts that year were the 3rd seed. They go into the postseason. Wild card weekend, they played the Kansas City Chiefs and running back Larry Johnson. Exactly what you don't want in that situation. They win that game. As Ravens fans remember, the next thing that happened was they went to play the Ravens.
Yeah, we pretend that game never happened. It was the darkest moment in franchise history, even more so than last year's AFC Championship game. It's the darkest moment.
It was all the field goals basically, and they held Jamal Lewis in check, right? So then they go to the AFC Championship game, and it's Lawrence Maroney and the Patriots, and they were able to hold that running game in check. And then they go into the game against the Bears, who had a really good running game in Super Bowl 41, and they held them in check. So it is possible to have a bad defense turn into a good defense later in the season. But right now, that Ravens defense is not going to win you anything. It has to get significantly better.
Is it possible? Do they have the personnel to do it? Like that's the part that I keep coming back to, Trey, is that obviously in Baltimore we were hoping that there was going to be a significant edge rusher that was added at the deadline, and there wasn't. Now, to be fair, the rush really wasn't the problem last night, right? Like they were all over Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, you tip your cap, man. That cat is incredible. And what he was able to do under relentless pressure, like unbelievable effort from that dude. But do they have the personnel that this can be better? I don't know how this changes.
Well, again, to your point, if you're the Ravens, what you want to do is you want to use that 2006 Colts team as your example, because they didn't change personnel.
Yeah.
They just tightened up some gaps and did all this kind of stuff. Now, it was a different era where, you could do a few more things defensively that you can't get away with now. But obviously the injury to Hamilton doesn't help. And I believe Harbaugh said after the game, it doesn't look to be serious. It looked bad on the field, but it doesn't look to be as serious as they had potentially feared. So that's good. But you got to dance with what you got now, and Zach Moore's got to try and figure out a way to make this thing a little bit better. Because the personnel isn't changing. It's not changing. And so you've got to figure out a way to work with what you have. And it's a proud franchise that we're talking about. I'm sure Ed Reed and guys like Chris McAllister and, obviously Ray and Suggs are thinking we're last in the league in pass defense. What the hell is going on out here? But it's, basically Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, without Higgins, by the way, did whatever the hell they wanted to do.
Trey, I asked the question because I know what you're saying, and I think I agree with you. Yeah. But is it definitive that it's not as if every Super Bowl winner has had a good defense. And I know that more have, but not all of them have. Is it definitive that you can't? I say this only to say, look, it's their run defense isn't as bad as their pass. It's the pass defense that we're talking about, right?
Correct.
Teams are hardly even trying to run on the Baltimore Ravens. Twofold, because the run defense is good, and B, because the pass defense really isn't. So why would you bother to try running on the Ravens? Is it implausible and utterly impossible to win a Super Bowl without having that, high-level defense? I don't know.
Well, the way I would answer that is, first of all, to your point, yes, why drive when you can fly?
Right.
That's the way they do that. It's not impossible. It's not implausible, but it's also not probable.
No, I'm fair with that. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone talked about the 49ers defense, right, going in against the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense was actually playing at a much higher level going into that Super Bowl last season than the 49ers defense was. Mm-hmm. And historically, when you look at these games, go back to Super Bowl 48, Peyton Manning, 55 touchdown passes, still the greatest single season I've ever seen from a quarterback in NFL history, and we play an extra game and no one's come close to those numbers for his yardage and touchdown totals. And they were rolling over everybody. They ran into a really tough Seahawks defense in the Legion of Boom, and they won that one 43-8. Look, there are instances where this happens, but it has to be somebody like the Chiefs in 2019 who, were down 24-0 in the divisional round and outscored the Texans 51-7 to win by 20. And then we're down by 10 twice to the Titans and won that game, and then we're down by 10 with 8 minutes to play in the fourth quarter in Super Bowl 54 and found a way to win. It is possible, but possible and probable are very different words with a lot of the same letters.
That's fair. Everything that you just said, utterly and completely fair, and the margin for error is almost nothing, right? Like, and to be fair,
and the other thing we got to talk about is, let's be honest, the closer isn't your closer anymore.
Yeah, when you're in that situation.
This is the worst season I've ever seen Justin Tucker have.
Yep,
and in that situation, with the margin for error that we talked about, he can't be Justin Tucker from 2024. He's got to be Justin Tucker from wherever he started to 2022. That's what he has to be.
Trey Wingo is with us here on GCR. Let's talk about it, Trey, because we can't gaslight it anymore. We can't just keep saying, there's nothing going on here. This is Justin Tucker. Everything's going to be fine. That ain't it. Like, it's not just fine. But at the same time, you're not cutting Justin Tucker. You're not.
No, you're not.
You're not doing a thing where you're inviting some other team to sign him and he's Justin Tucker and he beats you in the playoffs because you got frustrated with him missing kicks. So what do you do? Like, do you put another kicker on the practice squad to try to light a fire under him? Do you bring in, I don't know how you handle this, knowing that the answer isn't, like, can you hold 2 roster spots for a kicker, which seems insane? Like, I don't know what to do in this spot.
Well, I mean, you can certainly bring someone in and just have them hang around. And like you said, on the practice squad, you're definitely not until he misses like 4 in a row.
Right.
You're not doing that. But look, I think there was one point, didn't he miss 7 straight from 50 or more?
50 plus, yeah.
50 plus. And this is a guy who, 63 to win the game in Detroit or whatever it was, 64, no problem, piece of cake. We'll get it done.
66, in fact, to win the game.
66, it was 66 in Detroit a couple years ago. So he's just not that guy right now. And he hasn't been since about halfway through last season. But unless you have a much more certifiable, better option, you stick with it. And the hard part is suddenly you see someone like Brandon Aubrey for the Dallas Cowboys who really didn't even kick in college at all. And then the kid that the Lions got out of the
Bates,
USFL.
right.
Bates has come on and done really, really well. So, we are in this golden age of kickers. I do believe this. The mechanics are such that, you just, it has been, Scott Norwood missed a 47-yarder in Super Bowl 25 to give the Giants that Super Bowl win. And a 47-yarder now is really just an extra point with a holding penalty.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's essentially what it is. So we're in a different era where people are just expecting 48, 49, no problem. Butker last year at the Super Bowl, what's his face? The Money Mooney kicked the longest field goal in Super Bowl history, and then Butker said, "Hold my beer." Then he topped him. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like it's automatic now, and that's what makes it more frustrating for a guy who has been the most automatic to be not automatic in a league where it seems like everyone else is automatic.
What do you think about how they match up with the Steelers, Trey? Like, this is so compelling. It feels like it shouldn't be a 1:00 Sunday game next week, but I guess kudos for CBS for protecting the Ravens as much as they have this season. It feels like the entire. I know we get Bills Chiefs next week too, so I guess that ain't bad as a consolation prize. But I don't know. I think this comes back to I have so much faith. I don't know that it matters. The Broncos had a good defense until they faced Lamar Jackson. I just don't know that the defense part of this matters. I think they're impervious, but I do think it is a different type of football game, and no one knows better. I've made that trip to Pittsburgh many times. Goofy things happen when you step inside that stadium, man. Teams that are functional and perform well forget how to football the moment they look around at those yellow seats. It is a weird, weird place. What do you make of the match?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, first of all, the Broncos. Let's talk about that for a second. Yeah, they had a good defense, but who had they played?
Right, and that's fair. Yes.
When the Broncos
Buccaneers
played the Ravens,
the Buccaneers were the only real, before they lost their receivers, that was the only real thing that you had to hang your hat on with the Broncos.
Right. So that was like them stepping up in a weight class and getting punched in the face. Like that to me is what that was. The Steelers are interesting because they're still not real fluid on offense, whether it's Russell or or Justin Fields, and that process is sort of still emerging. It was kind of ugly in that last win, and big special teams saved them. Obviously, the problem is they're coming off a bye, and Mike Tomlin has won 7 straight coming off a bye, second longest active streak behind Buffalo, who's won 9 straight off a bye. That's problematic. And the other thing for the Ravens is, as good as they've been, they have 2 of the most inexplicable losses I can think of. They lost at home to Gardner Minshew and the Raiders,
and Jameis Winston.
And then Jameis Winston in Cleveland. Yeah. And, people we're talking about a great redemption story for Jameis Winston. That lasted 6 days.
Right.
Because then he reverted to Jameis Winston.
But he was Jameis Winston in that game. He threw the ball 4 times to the Baltimore Ravens. And not plays they could have made, balls in their hands that they just sort of said,
to end the game.
Right. We're good.
To end the game, Kyle Hamilton. To end the game.
Exactly right. I get it. And I'm not ready to proclaim the Bengals dead either. And part of it is, having seen them twice and they damn near beat the Ravens in both games. The vibes are off. There seems like there's something there that's going on that's bigger than just the defense is bad, the offensive line is banged up, but they still have Joe Burrow and they still have Jamar Chase. And there's still only 4 to 5 really dominant teams in the AFC. I still think they're a factor the rest of the way.
Well, I did this morning. I looked at their schedule. So they're 4-6, right? To have a chance, let's be honest, to have a chance to get into a tie-breaking situation in the postseason, 9-8's a minimum, right? 9-8's a minimum.
Right.
So look at their schedule, and do you see 5-2? Is it probable with the way they're playing? Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I'm not so sure.
Okay, I know the Chargers thing still stands out for them, and that's a defense that's been playing really well.
They got to play the Steelers
twice, right?
So that's 3 right there.
Yep.
So at a minimum, they got to go 2-1 against them. They got to play Denver too, right?
Yep, and we'll see. Yeah. Maybe Denver's been exposed as fraudulent a little bit, and maybe that's not. But I get it. I completely get it. Trey, what all can we plug for you, my friends?
Thank you. DraftKings pregame power-up every Monday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Eastern on DraftKings Network. We've got a huge, great slate of postseason coverage, too. We'll be all over every single round of the playoffs. We'll be there at the Super Bowl all week long. Obviously, the Alternate Routes podcast continues, and we'll be doing some stuff for the PGA Tour and NBC Sports on golf when that comes around again this spring.
Hopefully. I don't go anymore unless the Ravens are involved, so hopefully I'll be seeing you down in New Orleans because there's no better place to be for a week. This was the first time since I made that call. This is the first year where I thought about maybe I go anyway. It's New Orleans. What are we doing
here? Yeah. New Orleans is as good as it gets.
It's
really
the best Super Bowl city there is, man. It rules.
Yeah.
At Wingo Z, of course, on Twitter is how you follow him as well. Trey, you're the best, bro. Appreciate you. Thank you for doing this.
Anytime, Glenn. Take care, buddy.
That's Trey Wingo with us here on GCR. I really am. I'll be writing a column on Monday, and I feel like it's going to be I'm drawing a line in the sand where you're not going to get me to lose my S about the defense anymore. You're just not going to get me to. I know. Everything you say is correct.
So it's fixed? Is that
No.
Oh.
Everything you say is right. It's that I can't pretend that it matters as much as Lamar Jackson does. And I know this isn't a monolith. It's not like you have to pick one or the other. They can both be true. It can both be that Lamar Jackson is great and the defense isn't very good. But I feel like we obsess over the defense and not over the thing that matters more. I don't know. It's a weird vibe that I've had. This was just the emotion that came over me in the last 10 hours. How long has it been? I don't know. Whenever. It's 12 hours.
Yeah, 12 hours.
12 hours. The last 12 hours, including, I don't know, at least 17 minutes of sleep in there. The thing that I keep obsessing over is that's Lamar Jackson. And you know what? I'll give Andrew credit because that – No. I will. Because that text – and look, I don't think Andrew was really saying there's no way the Ravens can win this game. But it almost hit me as offensive. I mean, Andrew knows I love him. He doesn't have to – this is not a personal thing. It's one of my favorite human beings on the face of the planet. I love Andrew undyingly. And I know that he did not mean, when he sent me that text, there's no way the Ravens can win this game. It was the way that it felt in the moment. Same way that as we talked about in the postgame show, Ravens fans, when they were booing last night, weren't booing Lamar Jackson. They love Lamar Jackson. They were frustrated as hell about how things were going. Everybody was. Everybody was feeling it. But it was the absurdity for me, because in that moment, I tell you what I wasn't thinking was they're probably not going to win this game. I can't do that when I watch the Ravens anymore. I don't know what the scenario would have to be for me to feel that way. Even in the Browns game, when they got the ball back at the end, I thought they were winning the football game. Truly. They don't win every game. They're not going to win every game. But this thing, there's a 10,000-pound gorilla. It's having Lamar Jackson. And whatever you're bringing to the fight, we've got that. And I just can't shake that. Like, it ain't great. It don't feel good in the moment. And it is the comparison Cameron Wolfe brought up earlier. It's hilarious in hindsight that we think about the Ravens teams that were like, well, would they be able to come back if they get punched in the mouth and they can't play their brand of football? What can they do? This is the exact opposite of that. They still have the ability to play bully ball. And you could even question some of the play calling last night about getting away from bully ball unnecessarily. But beyond that, they've got a dude that is unlike anything the sport has ever seen. Ever. Take that every time. Quickly, you want to tell everybody about what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel?
$7 in free slot play every Baltimore or Washington home game where they score a touchdown.
I believe there's a Washington home game on Sunday.
Ooh, this could be a big week.
The Ravens aren't playing on Sunday, so
they did their part last night as well.
I'd maybe go camp out and get some free money.
$7 in free slot play for Live Rewards members who have their Live Rewards card inserted correctly into the slot machine, any slot machine on the floor, and are actively playing, and then you get your prize once those touchdowns are scored during any Baltimore or Washington home game this season. Adderall Mills must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
This next guy, he knows how much I love him. It felt so good to me to see, well, what's left of him anyway, show up in Baltimore this week and get his flowers and be recognized for his contributions to this franchise. And he was there last night holding the shield and getting to have his moment. Unfortunately, we call him a Super Bowl champion, but it was with the wrong team. We don't like that part, but we love him and we'll always love him. And he's a guy that was great to me and to my family. And my older son will probably for the rest of his life show people pictures of this guy feeding him when he was a baby. He's the great, speaking of baby, he's the great Brandon Williams, and he is now back with us here on GCR. Brandon, it's Glenn. I'm so happy for you, brother. I love you, and I appreciate you taking the time for us.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate it.
Dude,
always appreciate it.
I know that this wasn't the week that you made the decision or anything like that. I realize that this is just sort of a celebration of it. But what does it mean to you to kind of put an end to your playing career here and to have this moment and to bring it all full circle like this?
It means everything to me, man. Baltimore's always been great to me. You guys have always been great to me, man. Love it.
Brandon, I appreciate you taking the time for us, dude. Can you tell me what these last few years have been like for you? Just, obviously you bounce around a little bit. Walk me through what everything was like kind of leading up to the moment where you said, hey, I know this is the end.
Well, Glenn, pretty much what it comes down to for me is you got to get guys out there that can throw the ball, guys out there that can catch it and make touchdowns. That's all.
Can you go ahead? That's not Brandon Williams. This isn't Brandon Williams. It's on the phone with us.
Yes, it is.
No,
I'm Brandon Williams, bro.
Yeah, hang up the phone, Griffin. That's not Brandon Williams. I don't know who it is, but it's not Brandon Williams. That's not him. I could tell kind of quickly, and I apologize that I let it keep going. These things happen. This is the way it is. I don't know. It's all good. Life goes on. Mistakes are made. We learn from them. That's the way that it goes. And I'm bummed because I really do love Brandon Williams, and it makes me sad that we got duped, and I don't know what happened there. But that's not Brandon Williams. Sorry. Apparently, Brandon Williams changed his phone number at some point, and somebody else had it and decided to play a trick on us. And that's a bummer, and I hate it, but life goes on, and we live and we learn, and we go from there. Sorry, it takes me a second to regroup after something like that happens. I know I love professionals that have something happen that can just move on quickly and be like, whatever. Baba Booey, the whole thing. But it's a bummer. That's the way that it goes. Nothing we can do about it. Hopefully we will track down the actual Brandon Williams because it's a bummer that we didn't get him this time. All right. What we'll do is we'll come back in. We'll wipe the taste out of our mouth. We'll come back in, and we will go over pats on the ass for last night's win. That's all we can do is move forward. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at costasinn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Brooks Dubois profiles Maryland basketball forwards Derek Queen and Julian Reese as the Baltimore-built duo reunites in College Park with hopes of bringing the Terps back to prominence. Also inside, meet college basketball players from all of the area's D1 programs. PressBox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, where you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR. We press forward. That's what we do. We move on. This is the goofy. I can't pretend that things don't happen because people are going to, clown us about it, and that's fine. It happens. This will not, as I said before, this will not be the first time it happens. This won't be the last time it happens. It occurs. Glad I caught it quickly because who knows if there was a string of, slurs that was about to be coming. These things really do happen. They do. Which sucks. It's unfortunate. You just deal with it. But I would like to catch up with Brandon Williams because I really do love Brandon Williams. And that means that I apparently don't have his phone number anymore. So if somebody can get me in touch with Brandon Williams, I'm sure I could if I really tried hard enough. because I really do love that guy. And, he's been great to us over the years. So we would like to make that happen. Just don't know what happened today. All right. So with that said, we normally do it on Monday, but today we're doing it on Friday because the Ravens played last night. It's time to dish out some pats on the ass from the Ravens win over the Bengals last night. You know how this works. You send me a list. It's got 5 Ravens on it. 2 of them must be offensive players. 2 of them must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach, whichever you would like. You take that list, you rank them from 5 to 1, with number 1 being your man of the match. It's that simple. That's all that we ask for. And if you do it, you get rewarded by being registered to win a $50 gift card to the Costa Sin. Someone is winning a $50 gift card to the Costa Sin. What else can you ask for in life? Life is good. So get yours in at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter, and we'll pick somebody. I don't know. Maybe we'll take the weekend off. Maybe we'll do that on Monday. We'll pick somebody on Monday. So you got all weekend to get them in. Then I'll pick somebody on Monday, and they'll be the winner. I'll begin 5. The first 4 spots for me were claimed, and it was a question about what order they would be in, and I still don't even know if I have the right order, but they were all claimed. There were 4 spots that were claimed. There was only a 5th spot that was really up for grabs on this list. Mark Andrews was rock solid last night, and Dafe Owe was a presence up front and was regularly in the backfield. He finished with 4 quarterback hits. Ronnie Stanley was really good last night too, but I ultimately defaulted to Rashad Bateman in part because it also represented how they had moved on from what happened in Cleveland. And when Rashad Bateman was at the top of the list after the Cleveland game, this is one of the things that we had talked about was the hope that it didn't open up wounds. And it didn't mean that Lamar Jackson would go away from him and that trust would dissipate. But I thought that was important. I thought it was important to see that connection again that we had seen early on in the season. So I thought that was the most valuable of all of the other solid performances that we saw. And so that was the reason why that Rashad Bateman ended up being number 5 on my list.
Bateman was good. I guess. I mean, looking at it now, like closer, he did have the most targets of any of the pass catchers. So, and as you were saying, I mean that you could have gone with really. It feels like any offensive guy. They did a great job. I guess outside of the couple too many men or two illegal man downfield penalties, which they had 2 of, which seems like too many. But I went back to Mark Andrews as my number 5 here, because of and a lot of it is because of that play that we talked about late in the post game show. So Andrews touchdown in the 4th quarter that it turns out that whole play was improvised, and that just is great to see that again. That clearly Lamar and Andrews are on the same page. It's not like they weren't ever not on the same page, but with Likely being out, he stepped up big and came up with a lot of big first down catches. So Mark Andrews,
he looked a lot like Mark
5.
Andrews, and he's looked a lot like Mark Andrews ever since the first couple weeks of the season, and so that's peaceful. Unlike other people who haven't looked like themselves this year, he has certainly gotten back to looking like himself. Now, the other 4 spots, to me, it's just a question of what order you put them in, and I think it comes down to how do you measure the value of certain plays versus the value of someone maybe having a more complete, more total football game, right? And I don't know what the correct answer is, but I ultimately defaulted to the value of the plays. So Nnamdi Madubuike is number 4 on my list, even though, on the whole, someone would argue that he had a better game than the 2 guys that are ahead of him, and I'll understand that. I will. But the way the game turned, the 2 guys ahead of them were more the plays they made were a bit more responsible. I know this sort of gets into the gray area of, well, don't you have another segment that you do to reflect that? We got to wait till Monday to do 5 plays, which is I'm going to forget everything that happened in this football game by then. Uniquely, I don't know. I can't shake it last night. The plays stood out. They needed game-turning plays, and a couple of guys made game-turning plays. And while Nnamdi Madubuike was good throughout the game, none of them stood out individually as being game-changing sacks. But Nnamdi Madubuike was very good. He's my number 4.
I kind of disagree because he's higher on my list. I guess I'll tell you
it.
about it when we get there. I want Marlon Humphrey as my number 4 here. That is where I decided to put him. Ardarius Washington I think he had a really good game. Obviously, ended up being the game sealing kind of PBU there at the end on the 2-point conversion. So I wanted to find a way to get Ardarius Washington on here, but just couldn't. So Marlon Humphrey goes here. The fumble. I mean, everybody, as you mentioned, everybody did point to that as one of the big kind of turning point in the game, and that fumble essentially was more or less kind of a scoring play because they score obviously pretty quickly. They get great field position. So and I'm gonna have them at number 4. I think because they still did give up 500 yards almost 500 yards in the passing game. So yeah, even though Marlon Humphrey did have a pretty solid day, defensively the forced fumble was the biggest of all his plays. He's my number 4. Still a great game.
Higher on my list because again of the value of the play. Tylan Wallace is number 3. Who again it's funny when we talk about it as like player of the game. We're talking about a play. That's what we're talking about. But that's the value of the play. On the flip, I don't as bad as the secondary was. I don't know how much of that was really on Marlon, and we'll get to him. I think it's obvious now that you know he's my number 2. I don't think he was porous. Specifically, Tylan Wallace made an unbelievable play, and we are emphasizing the value of it in part because of the significance of the play, and in part because we don't expect it out of Tylan Wallace. There's a part of us that's like, if Zay Flowers makes the same play, we're like, okay, we think Zay Flowers can score anytime he touches the ball. But Tylan Wallace, we don't feel that way about. So it's part of the reason why we're kind of inflating it. But still, it was to be backed up, and it was a third down play on top of it. Like, they just needed to convert in that spot to be backed up the way that they were after finally getting a stop that required a sack in order to get that stop. So I guess I should think about that a little bit more. But after finally getting a stop and being backed up deep in their own territory, it was a game-changing play. There's no question about it. And then he added on, obviously another big catch. Yeah. So, Tylan Wallace is number 3.
Yeah, he was my number 3 as well. And, I mean, I was saying because after his first catch it did stand because they declined the illegal formation penalty. So because it was like that 3rd and 20 play. Was his first catch, and I was thinking, what are we doing? Like, why? How does this offense have available touches for Tylan Wallace? That was after his first catch, and then obviously lo and behold, I guess the next series, 85 yards up the sideline, tiptoeing, staying in bounds. It was an incredible play.
With adding to it, obviously the fact that
shedding 3 tackles.
But more that we know definitively he only stays in bounds because he lifts up his heel.
Yeah.
Right. Like. If he doesn't lift up his heel, he's out of bounds. Remarkable. And given all the bad luck the Ravens have had with sidelines and end lines this season, they were owed finally some good luck along a sideline, and they got it. And yes, there was conspiracy there, as has been pointed out by the film that I think it was Gino and somebody else both eased up, assuming.
Was it Taylor Britt or was it?
I don't remember.
Hilton?
I don't remember if it was Hilton. I think it might have been Hilton. Yeah. But 2 of them both eased up, assuming he was out of bounds, and they still nearly caught back up to him. Mm-hmm. So if they had just kept running, they were gonna get him if they hadn't eased up. But they did. That's the way football works. Sometimes people make mistakes, and you take advantage of them. Tylan Wallace did just that. And that's why he's number 3. So, we flip-flop Madubuike and Humphrey, and this was tough for me. It really was, but I can't shake. They had to have a play, some play, that changed the vibes of the football game. And Marlon Humphrey made it. And much like Marlon Humphrey has made other, significant plays this season, they needed something that shook it up, that woke them from their doldrums, that breathed life back into a game that was slipping away, and the vibes were bad, and the crowd was antsy, and the whole thing. And it's, in fairness, when we do 5 plays on Monday, we're really doing 3 plays because the first 2 are taken. The first 2 are obvious. This was the most important play of the game, which is ironic because it's a night where the defense was awful. Yeah. But the play that changed the game, the most important play of the Ravens win. God, I guess 3 spots are taken because how do you not have Lamar's run on there as well? That's the hilarious part is Lamar had one of the greatest plays we'll ever see, and the highest it can be on the list is number 3. And it's one of the greatest plays we'll ever see. And I don't know that it's the 3rd most important. I just feels like it kind of has to be on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
probably.
I got to think about what the consequences would. If he had lost yards, the consequences would have been significant. But what are the consequences really of a 10-yard? The actual play was a 10-yard gain. So I don't know what the consequences of that are. Still, the hell cares. It was amazing. But yeah, Tylan Wallace is Wallace is 3. Marlon's my number 2. You got Matabike.
I got Matabike at 2. Obviously, I mean, you can look at his stat line. It was pretty freaking ridiculous. The 3 sacks, and I think the third one was this was the third one. It was the final play of the third quarter, and it was 1st and 10, and and he got a sack. The Bengals lost 6 yards. They backed him up to the 35-yard line. And evidently, that was apparently not in Evan McPherson's field goal range because they threw incompletions on back-to-back plays to start the fourth quarter, and they had to punt it. That knocked them out of field goal range. So I looked at that as one of the biggest plays, but biggest sequences because obviously they did have to force the incompletions the next 2 plays. But that helped set them up, forcing a punt, and then the Ravens score on the next drive. That was because right after that was the Tylan Wallace touchdown. And then they take the lead. They do not take the lead because Tucker misses the field goal, misses the extra point. But it keeps 3 points off the board. So I thought that was one of the bigger plays in the game as well. And then Matabike just all game was wrecking obviously with getting in the backfield, making the day completely unpleasant for Joe Burrow, and on top of that being a big part of the run game, stopping the run as well, even though they didn't try to run the ball, but it's because Matabike and Travis Jones are there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I
backed him out at field goal range like that. That was a big.
That was that part. That's the one. That would be the one that you would say, hey, that was, and maybe again, I might be taking off. Might be that we're really doing 5 plays right now. It might very well be that we're actually doing 5 plays today and not on Monday. Look, it's almost like we can't even do this segment anymore because it's just Lamar Jackson is going to be number 1 because he's going to be number 1 because he's having a historic season. This isn't just he's number 1 because he's the quarterback. This is he's number 1 because he's just doing things that other humans don't do. Period. And if that changes, then somebody else will be number 1. But until that moment, it's going to be Lamar Jackson because this is utterly insane what it is that we're watching from him. And so, yeah, it almost feels like pats on the ass is just pick 4 other dudes. 4 other dudes that you think had good games, credit them for having good games, and then put Lamar Jackson at number 1. The only other names that I've seen show up on the list this week, I saw – hang on a second. An argument made for Jordan Stout.
I mean, I guess because he was punting a lot in the first half.
He
was a career. I think I saw someone had it. It was a career high in punts because it was 5 or 6 that I think he had to.
Okay, and he did largely flip the field. I thought he had a good night. I mean, there are too many options for me to really consider Jordan Stout, but
5 punts, 46 yards per punt.
And not every punt is in the same spot. Like it's always difficult when you go by yardage because
2 pinned inside the 20.
If you're punting from midfield, then you're not gonna. I don't know what it's always tougher. We need a better punt stat. We need a punting efficiency stat that helps us out in these spots to know how well someone performed.
54-yard long.
Basically everything else is all the names that we talked about. Bateman and Andrews. A couple people that got Ronnie Stanley on their lists. Have not seen Odafe Owe on anybody's list. I brought him up that I thought he was worthy of consideration.
You can make the argument top 7, 8, I guess.
Again, the thing that we were screaming about this week was that they've actually had sacks. They just haven't had pressures and quarterbacks.
Kyle Hamilton in the first half.
He certainly could have. In that point, you would have made an argument for Kyle Hamilton. He looked like Kyle Hamilton, but just didn't finish the game. And so that's the difference, and that's the reason why he's not on the list. But continue to get me yours at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. As I said, you'll have all weekend to share me your lists. So if you're listening to this show on Sunday, still plenty of time for you to get me your pats on the ass.
Unless I change my mind.
Nope, that's not. You don't get that option. You don't get that option. Come Monday, Griffin will pick the winner, and somebody's getting a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. All right, today's show is also brought to you by the print issue of PressBox, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Maryland's back in action tonight. We're going to tell you about that coming up here in a minute when we get to Totally Tubular. But there you see on the cover the Baltimore-built duo of Derek Queen and Juju Reese reunited, former St. Francis teammates, now teammates once again in College Park. Go pick this up right now for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of those hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. Let's go ahead and get a tidbit.
All right, where do we want to start? Both quarterbacks were pretty good. So this one from OptaStats. There have been 2 instances where in NFL history where a quarterback had completed over 30 passes, so 30-plus completions, over 300 passing yards, at least 4 passing touchdowns, and multiple 40-yard touchdown passes, and no more than 1 interception in the game, so 1 or fewer interceptions. Both of those instances were by Joe Burrow, and both happened this season against the Ravens, and he lost.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. Dude, you don't feel bad for Joe Burrow because he plays for the Bengals and you don't like the Bengals, right? But you can't help but tip your cap to the dude. You can't help but just say, bro, that was unbelievable, man. Like, it's unbelievable. But it's also, to me, part of the reminder of, I don't know, I just, as great as other quarterbacks are, and Joe Burrow is a great one, I still think there's a separation even between them and Lamar Jackson. And somebody would say, well, what did Lamar Jackson do that Joe Burrow didn't do last night? Right?
Win.
Well, that part is true. That is accurate. Maybe somebody would say there's some luck involved with that.
Better on third down.
On third down last night, he was. Lamar Jackson is Thanos, and it's hard to figure out. I don't know what to make of Joe Burrow coming up short because it's hard to put it on him. But Lamar Jackson is having to overcome and is doing it. Joe Burrow also has a bad defense and a shoddy offensive line, and those things matter. The story of the Bengals this year is not Joe Burrow, but they're not dissimilar stories to what the Ravens are dealing with, and yet the Ravens are 7-3. Some of it's luck. It really is. You could go back and say they win the first game if their kicker makes a reasonable kick. Some of it is just pure luck. I know they'll try to say that about what happened on the 2-point conversion last night, but I keep coming back to I don't think it mattered. I think the Ravens are winning anyway. But if that had been with 2 seconds left in the game and the same thing, then you could have argued that there was luck involved last night. Sometimes it is. But, man. All right.
Over the last 3 games, Lamar has rushed for over 100 yards, in total, so 102 yards rushing across the last 3 games. He also has a passer rating of 145.6 across the last 3 games. The only time that is the only time that a quarterback has ever had a 3-game span with a passer rating of at least 145 and also rushing for 100 yards across any 3-game span in the Super Bowl era. So Lamar Jackson there does that one. I missed this one yesterday. A quick basketball one for you. So Wednesday nights, Domantas Sabonis had a triple double. Those triple doubles are happening more often.
They're still
now.
good.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
He did it without missing a shot. He didn't miss a field goal. He didn't miss a free throw. He didn't turn the ball over at all either. He was 100% from the field, 100% from the free throw line, as he had 11 rebounds, 13 assists, and 17 points.
Seems good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Seems good.
Pretty good. It's the first time that's happened in NBA history. No turnovers. Did not miss a shot either from the line or from the field. And then also Jamar Chase. So Bo alluded to it. He is a Ravens killer. Already the 6th most receiving yards against the Ravens all time. Who are the other 5 ahead of Jamar Chase for now?
Yeah, for now.
He's also the only player in NFL history to now have multiple games of 250 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I'll say Chad Johnson.
Chad Johnson is on the list. He is number 2 all-time, 1,300 yards, 1,361.
How about
Ocho Cinco?
I mean, like, it's funny because you just think of that era, and it wasn't an era where there was, but Hines Ward.
Hines Ward's number 3.
Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown is number 4.
Who's number 1? Was it Keenan McCardle?
It was not Keenan McCardle. He is number 7. Jamar Chase surpassed him last night.
Jimmy Smith?
Jimmy Smith is number 1. Over 1,500 yards in 15 games played against the Baltimore Ravens.
Who's the last one? A.J. Green?
Not A.J. Green. That's a good guess. He's 8th behind McCardle.
Gonna go ahead and do the whole top 10 here.
Yeah.
Is it Mason?
No, it is not Mason.
It'd be pretty funny if it was Mason.
It's Mason. I'll make the top 25 here. I don't see Mason in the top 25.
Now, that's surprising. That's I mean, I guess by that point, the Ravens had moved out of the division. No, I mean, like, he's definitely played him as a division opponent, but okay. So Heath Miller.
Heath Miller is not in the top 5. He is. I should have clicked the wrong one. I clicked touchdowns. He is top 10 in touchdowns. Not receiving yards, though. 12th in receiving yards.
Mike Wallace.
Not Mike Wallace, but he is in the top. He's top 17.
Yes. Vaunted top 17.
Derek Mason had 400 yards.
Everybody always says, like, you got to be in that AP top 17. You guys check out the new top 17 poll this week. See where somebody was.
Just giving the information here. Derek Mason had 400 yards against the Ravens.
That's a little surprising.
Bum.
Yeah, right. He sucks. The problem is trying to come up with a Brown who could possibly be on the list because they just didn't like Braylon Edwards. I don't think is going to make this list.
Not Braylon Edwards. Yeah, you're just missing number 5 here.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm just.
There is a Brown in the top 10.
There's a Brown in the top 10.
Make it top 9.
So Brown in the top 9. Who the hell would be the Brown that would be on this list? Kevin Johnson?
Not Kevin Johnson.
Who the hell would be on this list? It's somehow Amari Cooper now?
Not Amari Cooper. Played 12 games. He did not start his career in Cleveland.
Not start his career in Cleveland. Played 12 games, so he was there for 6 years. Someone who was in Cleveland for 6 years.
His second stop. And then I guess because he's not playing anymore, so I don't think he went anywhere else.
Jarvis Landry?
I don't
remember being there for 6 years. I got to be honest.
Maybe, I guess because he had whatever games he played with the Dolphins, those count. So maybe 4 or 5
okay.
years.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
But yeah, he's ninth. So you're still missing 5.
T. Higgins?
Not T. Higgins. T. Higgins is 24th. Top 24.
Man.
1 more yard than Tyreek Hill against the Ravens.
How about that? I'm assuming it's a division opponent.
Yeah.
Plaxico Burress.
Not Plaxico Burress. He's 11th.
I'm about to use use curse words.
He is a former Raven.
Oh, T.J. Hushmanzada.
987 yards. He is 5th, and Jamar Chase, whatever the next time Jamar Chase plays the Ravens, he will pass him.
Damn. That's a bummer.
You want to do the top? He's also 6th in touchdown scores. So you want to do the?
Oh, for God's sakes!
There's only one different guy. Or sorry, no, he is. He's 3rd already. I was looking at T. Higgins.
Chase.
Yeah, he's 3rd already in receiving touchdowns against the Ravens.
So there's another receiver there. How many more that are on the? What are you trying to get me to get?
If we do the top 5, there's one guy that you didn't name yet.
One guy that I didn't name yet. Antoine Randall L.
Not Antoine Randall L. How many times did he even play the Ravens?
I don't know. He was a Steeler. For a few years. Oh, Santonio Holmes?
Santonio Holmes, yes. Had 7 touchdowns.
Including one that shouldn't have been a touchdown. No.
Tied with a Bengal, which you already named. 7 touchdowns.
Chad Johnson?
Yes, Chad Johnson.
named him.
And then the top 2 touchdowns scored against the Ravens receiving.
Jimmy Smith.
Jimmy Smith's number 1.
Okay.
Jeez, Jimmy Smith was a Ravens.
He was killer.
murderer.
Hines Ward.
Not Hines Ward.
I mean, these are just guys that have named already.
Yeah. So who would have the most touchdowns out of those guys?
Who had the most touchdowns out of those guys? I'm betting it's not Jarvis Landry. AJ Green?
AJ Green.
Really?
Yes, AJ Green. He had so Jimmy Smith 10, AJ Green 9, Jamar Chase 8 already in 8 games played.
Well, that was an exercise that we did.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was, I don't know about that one. All right.
Guess what? We won. So
that's true. There is that. Remind everybody about what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel.
$7 in free slot play for every time there's a touchdown scored in Baltimore or Washington home games this season for Live Rewards members who get out to Live Casino and put their Live Rewards card. They insert it correctly into the slot machine. Any slot machine on the floor actively playing, and when those touchdowns are scored, $7 in free slot play every home game Baltimore, Washington this season. Adderall Mills must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Or call 1-800-GAME.
By the way, I do want to acknowledge that in what I'm writing I forgot to mention this. The other part that's interesting about Tylan Wallace last night, when Deontay Hardy returns, I don't know that they have room for all of these guys on the roster. Like, that's the sort of the underlying part that you're not thinking about, because he's been a helpful special teams player. But like, I don't know that they have room for it, provided no one else gets hurt. I don't know. And maybe the answer is Deontay Hardy's the odd man out, right? Like, maybe that they just say, hey, you're not making enough of a difference in the return game. You know, we're basically the same with you or without you, so you're the odd man out. I don't know, but somebody is the odd man out. And if Tylan Wallace doesn't take advantage of his opportunities, maybe he's the odd man out and Deontay Hardy. I don't know. But that is a subplot to the night that Tylan Wallace had. Is I don't think they can keep all of those guys on the roster.
When did Hardy get put on the IR?
3 weeks ago, I want to say.
So it's gonna be an issue.
Well, I don't know what the significance of the injury. You know, I don't know enough to know when he would be returning. But and again, you hope that nobody else gets hurt in the meantime. All right, let's go ahead and get Tubular for the weekend.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, here's what's coming up. Totally Tubular this weekend. A lot going on with both college hoops and football. Tonight, CBS Sports Network for the Veterans Classic down in Annapolis. First up, Boston College and VCU with our old buddy Ryan Odom back in town. He lived in Annapolis when he was the coach at UMBC. Great dude. That's at 6 o'clock tonight. And then Harvard-Navy at 8:30. UMBC is at Penn State at 6 o'clock on Big Ten Network. Jim Ferry returning to Penn State. And then after that, you can just camp out on Big Ten Network because Maryland hosts Mount St. Mary's tonight at 8. That's also on BTN. Towson is at home against Penn State Wilkes-Barre, but it's only on Flow Sports at 6 o'clock. But your first chance to see Towson at home this season. And that's about it for local stuff tonight. Tomorrow, Big Ten Network for Maryland-Oregon football at 7 o'clock. Godspeed. ESPN2 for Navy South Florida football at noon. Towson's at home against Hampton at 1 o'clock. ESPN Plus has Morgan at Delaware State at noon. Basketball tomorrow, Ryder Coppin, 2 o'clock on ESPN Plus. Morgan Longwood, 3 o'clock on ESPN Plus. Loyola plays Lancaster Bible. Throw out all the records when Loyola and Lancaster Bible College get together. You, of course, know that Lancaster Bible is the
Chargers.
How do you know? Oh, you've done
done
a game. Okay, that I guess that
I live
makes
here.
sense. No, that wouldn't be the way that you would know it. By the way, did you see that Maryland soccer lost 6-0 to UCLA in the Big Ten tournament yesterday? Brutal.
That is.
Patriot League soccer tournament tomorrow. The quarterfinals. Loyola's against at American at 6 o'clock. UMBC hosts Binghamton tomorrow night at 7 in the America East soccer tournament. Hopkins football tomorrow at home, 1 o'clock against Dickinson. Centennial Conference.tv. Stevenson on the road against Misericordia at noon. GoMaxSports.tv. Big college football games tomorrow. Both only
Colorado plays Texas Tech. Yeah.
Right. The big ones are Georgia Ole Miss 3:30 on ABC, and then Alabama LSU 7:30 on ABC. And on Sunday, with no Ravens game to have to worry about, can just enjoy watching football. NFL Network for the game from Munich, Germany. Big one, Giants-Panthers, 9:30 in the morning.
Go Malik Neighbors, go Tyron Tracy. Go ahead.
That's a lot of Giants to have on your fantasy
Well, they're good
football
players.
team.
So
CBS, the
local
local game will be of interest. Steelers, Commanders, 1 o'clock, and then everybody gets Eagles, Cowboys at 4:25.
Fly.
I mean, I got nothing there. I just don't care. Fox, this is the thing where they just insist on putting the Cowboys game on national TV. And Fox, unfortunately, is doing a 1 o'clock game locally and not a 4 o'clock game locally, as they're doing 49ers, Buccaneers at 1. So you're stuck with Eagles, Cowboys.
So we could have gotten, Cardinals, Jets, or is that CBS?
Cardinals, Jets, I think, is the other CBS 4:25 game, yeah. NBC, the Sunday night game, Lions, Texans at 8:20. The Maryland women are at home on Sunday against Duke, 1 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. And that's it for local stuff this weekend. Anything non-sports? The rest of the sports you can find at glennclarkradio.com. Anything non-sports?
There really isn't, at least not today. We are 1 week out from Twisters coming to streaming.
Thank God.
Twisters will be on
I'm
Peacock
glad you gave us the 1 week warning for Twisters being on streaming.
For today specifically, there's just nothing else non-sports-wise. Bill Burr will be hosting SNL tomorrow night, along with musical guest McGee.
I had no idea what that was.
I don't know what he is either.
Never heard of this person. But I'm also 41, so I kind of thought that maybe you might have.
I don't know who he is. I don't know who he is. I can't.
This is the big post-election show too.
Bill Burr McGee. Bill Burr McGee.
I am.
The season 1 finale of Penguin as well on Sunday night for HBO, and a new episode of Tulsa King on Paramount Plus on Sunday.
The Guardian 1 week ago wrote McGee review. Is this the world's most exciting young guitarist? Boy, I can't wait to find out that after I clown not knowing who it was, I come in here on Monday. I'm like, I'm a McGee guy. Always have been, always will be.
McGee's the
my
greatest.
thing. Wish you guys were in on this. I actually might spend time with McGee this afternoon so that I can be a cool hipster. I do that. All right. Everything else up at glennclarkradio.com. Very good. Thanks today to Cameron Wolfe. Thanks to Trey Wingo. Thanks to Bo Smolka. We'll get all of that up and nothing else in the greatest hits section of the
Here we go.
tab at
Pats in the ass
glennclarkradio.com. Pats in the ass, sure. But you knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
Don't forget. Actually, you know what? Nothing to say. Don't forget about nothing this weekend because we're not doing game day because we did it last night. Reed and I will be hosting Monday morning 6 to 9. Those days are rough. I like the idea of going home taking a nap. That's not going to be the option. Going to be a marathon of me on Monday, 6 to 9 on 105.7, then over here, 10 to noon afterwards. Cool. Big day. All right, thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including the Maryland 5-Star, Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Costas Inn, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great weekend. Go, I guess we say go Command. Do we say go Commanders, or is that still a little?
Hail to the Commanders.
Go not the Steelers. Is
Hail
what
to
we
the
say.
Commanders.
No, we don't say that. Go not the Steelers. Go all the local college football and college basketball teams. Duke sucks.